Greetings. Hello. Happy day to you. We hope that you are well. We really do hope that you are doing very well. And we are happy that you are joining us for today's episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a weekly program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Thank you for joining us for this important topic today. A strong fatherhood must include a commitment to activism. And really, what we're going to break down today is this question of fatherhood, patriarchy, capitalism, and liberation. So we're glad that you're joining us today for this very critical topic. We give honor and respect to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. I was just before this broadcast reading an article by some indigenous activists, some Lakota people in the Dakotas, which, if you didn't know, that those states are named after the Lakota people, as they should be, since it is their land. But these folks were talking about this continued effort to attempt to convince them, the seven ethnic groups there, the Oglala Nation, as they're called, to convince them to accept this monetary settlement for the theft of the Pahasapa, or what the capitalists call the Mount Rushmore, in South Dakota, and how, they're talking about how they're consistent. They've been trying to get them to do this for years, accept this money, and how, they're never going to accept money. This is a question of land and dignity. And every time I read about them and those types of questions and their commitment to principle, I think about us and how, because we don't have a clear understanding of who we are as African people, we don't have that same sense of dignity and self-respect. I mean, a lot of us here in this backward ass country would take a check in a minute calling it reparations, when it's not reparations. It's just you're a hoe and the prostitute is paying you. That's what that is. There's no amount of money. That's what the indigenous people are telling us, that we should have sense enough to listen to. There's no amount of money that can pay. There's no price tag that can be put on the oppression our people have experienced for centuries. I mean, we just had Juneteenth 2 days ago, and we still don't get it. I know we don't get it, because that's the work that we have to be engaged in to help us get it. But this is a lesson in dignity. Like, you can't pay off uh devastating our people for 500 years. There's no uh amount of money that can justify that. And anybody that's willing to accept money to do that is just after some money. They don't care about our people, our collective advancement, or any of that. They're just after a check. That's all it is. And are such it's such a slave mentality attached to it that uh, many of us, we don't even have enough. They're not even negotiating for an amount of money. It's like, just give us some money. If these crackers came back, and graham crackers, and said we'll give you each $15,000, a lot of these Negroes would think that they had died and gone to heaven for $15,000. That's how cheap you're willing to sell off our people's suffering. So, just with that, we always start by talking about respect for the indigenous people and respect for our African ancestors. I feel like we just did both. The respect for our ancestors is that there's no amount of money that can justify our suffering for 5 centuries. The only thing that can justify it is reclaiming our dignity. And the only way that can happen is reclaiming our stolen land, because land is power. And that's what we need, is power. We're not, some of us are okay with fitting into the capitalist system, but we're not okay with that. And we're going to fight you to the death on that. That is not a solution that's going to benefit the majority of our people on earth. And we're never going to accept that. So thank you for joining us for this important topic on fatherhood today. And we'll just get started as we always do, because people may not know who we are. So, Our Ancestors' Voices, this program is sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, AAPRP, which is a revolutionary, independent, mass, pan African political party with a base in Africa, the national home for African people scattered and suffering everywhere on earth: Africa, Europe, all throughout the Western Hemisphere. And our work, you all, is to achieve Pan-Africanism, which we define correctly as one united socialist Africa, one united socialist Africa. We are convinced that this solution is the answer to the problems that African people face. When you run into these Africans today out here and they're talking about, I'm not African, I'm Native American, the reason why that exists is because Africa has no prestige today. If Africa was the strongest entity on earth, you would never be able to convince me that these people would be saying, I'm Native American, I'm not African, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, I'm not African. There's no way that you would be able to convince me that they would be saying that. And those of you that say those things, you know damn well that you would not be saying that if Africa was respected and free today. So that's what we need. That's what Pan Africanism will provide for us. The same way the Chinese Revolution provided that respect for China and Chinese people who never been to China, who don't even speak Cantonese or Mandarin Chinese. And you see them and they say, I'm Chinese, you immediately have a sense of respect for them because China is respected. You don't even know them. And the reason why we're disrespected the way we are is because how are you going to be respected and your mother's disrespected? Where is that the reality? Especially, what child do you know that denies their history and their background, disrespects their parents, and is respected and able to build and respect? What people have you seen on the planet Earth who have been able to build up their self-determination, build up their society, be successful folks in the sense of having dignity and a healthy relationship with one another, who have disconnected themselves from their history and culture? What people have you seen do that, who have disconnected themselves from their history and culture? It does not exist. So that's why we say Pan-Africanism, and our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which is our guide for doing the work we do all throughout the African continent. This is not a theory. It's not a hope. It's not a dream. This is actual on the ground work that we do in this organization to bring about Pan Africanism. And I'm fortunate enough to have done that work on the ground in many parts of Africa, in North Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. So I've seen it, I've participated in it. You can go and you can type in my name and see the pictures of me doing the work with our people at home, as well as the other APRP organizers. So this is not a dream, it's not a fantasy, it's not a hope. This is our destiny. And this program, Our Ancestors' Voices, is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and my biological, ideological daughter, Dr. Shakura Umi. So to get us started with this topic on fatherhood, I'm going to turn it over to Shakura.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. So, having some computer issues here. I'm trying to turn my video on. Hopefully, you will see my face soon. But yeah, I wanted to start us off with discussing how these particular institutions are connected to capitalism and why it's so important for us to push back against that. So, we can start with thinking about how we connected this to several seminars that we've done in the past with this idea that what is the purpose of today's holiday? So when you saw the Macy's commercial earlier this week, what was the purpose of that, right? When you saw the Ace Hardware store commercial earlier this week, like what was the purpose of that? The purpose was to, draw your attention to the fact that you needed to be thinking about how to spend money today, right? What that looked like for you. And if you weren't thinking about it, that indicated that you weren't prioritizing your loved ones. You weren't, being a good family member, I guess, because you weren't thinking about how to spend money that you might not even have in terms of, whatever that can look like for you. So I think that when we think about holidays within this empire, this capitalist profit over people empire, what that means on a larger scale for us, especially with institutions like Father's Day, is they serve a larger purpose of helping to provide one of the many vehicles that drives up consumers to spend money. And again, I would encourage you to just think about in the past week, how much of a push for you to spend money and to buy things towards this day have been connected to that, right? Excuse me. Even with you thinking about how you have made plans for today, or maybe some of the social activities that you wanted to do, that's all been connected to, a higher purpose of spending money, having to secure reservations if you wanted to go out to brunch, making sure that you had, the plan in place of what the gift was going to look like and who was going to present it. All of these things have been really important in terms of you getting that evaluated, but also even the priority, that the pressure you're feeling of the priority to make sure your family members feel valued. Because I think there's even this notion floating around that people are more likely to focus and pay attention to Mother's Day for non-male people, but they're less likely to focus and pay attention for Father's Day. And I think that capitalism is good at putting pressure on you regardless. So you just need to think about that, A. And then B, you also need to think about, on a larger scale, what does that mean, right? Because they just want to get comfortable with you spending as much money as you can, even if you don't have that money, right? And so we just have to think more deeply about that, because I think that it's imperative for us to kind of separate what is the imperialist capitalist intention behind these institutions, and how do we separate not buying into that and still holding on to our humanity and pushing forward so that we can still have a focus of family and unity and love and respect and humanitarianism, instead of capitalism and greed and corporation and profit and all of those other things. So with that, I will ask to advance to the next slide, please. Thank you. All right. And I'm thankful for you, Baba Ajamu, because my computer is really not doing well right now. And you were frozen, but you did advance. So that means you can still hear me, which is good. This is a little disappointing, actually, because I do have a gift for you that I was hoping to present visually, but I still can't get my video to come on. So that really sucks, but that's okay. Oh, I think I'm here. Oh, all right. Well, thank you to the ancestors. All right. Thank you to the ancestors. Okay. All right. So, speak.
Shakur, I'm not able to hear you. I'm not sure if it's just me. I think you cut out. So we'll try to see if we can get you back here. Let's see what's going on. I don't hear you on here. Yeah, I know you're not talking because I don't hear you on the live stream either. Oh, you're talking, but I don't hear you, and I don't see your mic moving. So I'll keep it going, and hopefully we can get you back here. Just interrupt me if you hear me and you come back. So sorry that we lost you. Appreciate you though, thinking of me today. Appreciate that. But just want to reflect quickly while we're waiting for Shakur's audio. She lives down there in Silicon Valley. So there's probably like 3,000 people on the internet within a 10 feet radius of where she is. So it's a struggle for her to get a clear and crisp internet signal. And she's coming back in now. So let's see if that'll work. Please give us a second. Excuse the process here. Let's see. Are you there, Shakur? Can you hear us? Is it working? Just speak up if you can, and I'll just keep going. I know you're trying your best to get in, but we understand we don't control the technology. We just use it. We should control it, and we'll get there one day. But if we talk about the evidence from the previous slide, like it is correct, you all. Like if Father's Day was really about reflecting upon the role of fatherhood, then there would be a much more serious approach to these days, Father's Day, Mother's Day, etc., than there is. And by serious approach, what we mean is that we will be talking about the healthy role of being a father, and not just enticing people to spend money they don't have, but how many of our fathers are worth the air that they breathe? I mean, that's really the question, you know. And these types of days should be focused around ensuring that as men we have the resources to get a proper education about what a healthy man looks like in a backward society, because this is a backward society. And if we're not consciously struggling against this society, then we're going to be backward too. So that's what these types of days should be about. That's not what they're about, but that's what they should be about. How do we as men engage with women, with non-gender people, with everybody else on earth, with other men, and do it in a healthy way? How do we define our relationships beyond just being this masculine facade that we all were raised to have? How do we do that? This is what we should be using these days to deal with. And in this capitalist society, you know, everything is always form over essence. That's how this society is structured. So Father's Day and everything else is reduced to a shell where we have to front like we are good fathers instead of working to be good fathers. We have to put up that's what we mean when we say form over essence. We have to look like we're good fathers instead of actually being good fathers. And that's good enough in this society because all that matters is how things look. It doesn't matter how it really is. So what you'll see is all over this backward country today, you got all these dudes that are showing up. They haven't seen them in all year, but they're there today to get the glory of, you know. And this is not. We got to do better than this. I remember after the Million Man March in 1995, we had a bunch of us went here in Sacramento, and so we had an event here, and about 400 people came to the event. It was kind of like a report back on the Million Man March in October of 1995, and there were a number of us that went, different organizations, and we were there. There were five of us on the panel, and I was humbly able to be one of them. And we were the audience was overwhelmingly women, overwhelmingly African women, probably about 90%. And they were there, and I'll never forget it. The one sister stood up and she said, my children saw their dad on TV during the Million Man March. And everybody went, oh, that's cool. Yay. And then she said, it's just too bad that they, other than seeing him on TV, they haven't seen him in 3 or 4 years. And I thought, you know, that's exactly what I thought then, and I'm saying it now. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not throwing shade at that man or any other man. What I'm saying is that if we're going to build ourselves to be productive and quality people with dignity, we have got to address that type of thing. We can't just act like because somebody shows up on a day or because they were able to donate sperm, that you know that qualifies them to be honored. There should be no affirmative action on this question. You should be honored because you deserve to be honored. And I'm not saying I deserve to be honored. I'm just that I don't. That's not my point. My point is that we should respect the institution of family, but we don't because we live in a society that values money above people. We live in a society that treated us like property for 350 years, and we still act like we're property. We act like we're property today in 2026. That's why we call ourselves everything except what we are, honored African people. We call ourselves everything else except that. We call ourselves the B word, the H word. We call ourselves the N word. We call ourselves all of these crazy things. And we're so crazy about it that we really try to convince ourselves that we're carrying our people forward by adopting these backward ass labels. And we don't have a shred of evidence anywhere to justify how us adopting the N word has lifted us up as a people and allowed us to do more and be more productive and be more healthy when we can't provide a shred of evidence and nobody even is asking for the evidence. And that tells you how insane we are here today. No one is even asking for evidence. In fact, evidence is considered a problem in this backward ass society. You know, being ignorant is a flex here today. You can say whatever the hell you want to say, and nobody even has the ability to call you on it and demand that you document what you're saying. And you don't even, you're so arrogance is so dominant, you don't even have the uh, understanding that, well, maybe I should second guess saying that. It really doesn't make any damn sense. Maybe I should second guess that. I had this guy, yeah, I get a ton of hate mail. And as I say all the time, I'm happy to get it. If I go too long without getting it, I start to wonder whether I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing out here. So I get a ton of hate mail every day. People reach out to me on all the platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Threads. I don't even really know how to use Threads yet. And I got hate mail on there, which is a wonderful thing. And all the other ones I can't think of right now, YouTube, all of them. And a day or so ago, I had this clown reach out, and he's like, um, I have a wonderful shirt that I had made for Juneteenth. It's a red, black, and green shirt, and it has on the front it says African, and on the back it says honoring Juneteenth, and it has the red, black, and green flag, which is our flag, and it has a PRP on it on both sleeves. And I took a picture. I don't take a lot of selfies. If you happen to be friends with me, you know that's true. I don't do that. I'll do it maybe once or twice a year, and when I do it, it's for things like that, to demonstrate the culture, demonstrate the struggle. And so I took a picture and I posted it. And so this clown came on there and saying Juneteenth is a made up holiday. And I wrote, you don't, I'm not, you don't want to troll me. I worked at it. I perfected it. I'm really good at it. So I wrote back, your intelligence is made up. And then he wrote back, well, why are you getting personal? I'm like, we should be united as a nation. I mean, imagine this. This is how insane everything is here. We should be united. We have 250-year birthday coming up. We should all be united. And I said, you just vomited all over Juneteenth. And then now you expect me to celebrate your filth. I said, I'll be burning your flag on July 4th. That's what I'll be doing on July 4th. And if you come too close to the flame, you'll catch fire too, as you should. And of course, that was the end of that. But my point in telling you this is that this backward capitalist society that we live in has reduced everything to a commodity, to the point where we don't even understand what a healthy father child relationship looks like. We don't even understand what that looks like. If it slapped most of us in the face, we wouldn't know what it was. And that's the work that we have to do. And I'm not, I mean, I'm saying that because I'm not perfect, like you're not perfect. None of us are perfect. But I can definitely say this, from the moment that I found out that I was going to be a father, I was there. I was present every day, every goddamn day. There wasn't a single day that I wasn't. And there wasn't a single day that I didn't give it 100%. Even if I failed, I picked my ass up and tried again, because that, you all, is what we owe our people, our ancestors. That's who we owe. So that's what I decided at whatever I was, 24 years old, I was going to do. And there were many other children that came through that stayed with us and did that. And now I have children with my wife, and this is what it's all about. This is what we have to be able to figure out. And if we don't do that, then we're just bullshitting. And I don't want to, I'm not into that. I'm not trying to just do that. I want to build a better world. I, at least to what I can control, want to build, make a contribution towards a better world before my days are over with. And so, in order to do that, I got to take life at least serious on some level. And so, this is why we talk about these kind of things, because where else is it being talked about? Where else is it happening? So that's what we're talking about, you all, when we say, we got to understand that we're not dealing with reality in this society, and we got to create the reality that we want to have. And so we'll just keep the heat up. I hope, Shakura is able to get back on. And I'm sorry her internet cut out. I know she's stressed. Don't stress about it, Shakura. It's just the man's technology. I know you're here in spirit, and that's all that matters. But fatherhood and patriarchy, I think a healthy narrative about fatherhood has to challenge the dominant reactionary ideology that men are oppressed in the capitalist system. I hear that all the time, not just from European men. I would expect to hear it from most of them, but I hear it a lot from African men that we are as and what I mean by this, of course, we're oppressed by the capitalist system. I mean, if you don't understand that I understand that, then you just have missed everything. And I would suggest getting back on your medication. But what I'm saying right now is that, and I'm sorry I have to talk like that, but y'all don't see the hate mail that I get. So, it is what it is. But what I'm saying is that this notion that men are as oppressed as women and queer folks and non-gender binary folks, that men, like people don't understand there's a class relationship to this stuff. And a lot of our people have no understanding of class struggle, none whatsoever. Anybody that says something like I'm rooting for everybody black has no understanding of class struggle, none whatsoever. So it's important that we understand class because I would argue that class drives all of the other isms. Class struggle drives all of the isms. It drives uh, racism, sexism, homophobia. It drives all of these things. So we have to understand the class contradictions in this world. And what we mean by that is that there are elements to this. Certainly European men are at the top, but not all European men. European men who have specific resources in relationship to the capitalist system that gives them authority to engage in this society from a position of authority. That's not every white man doesn't have that. There are white men that are houseless, and if you don't understand class struggle, you'll be sounding ridiculous arguing that a houseless white man is as oppressed as a houseless white man is not. Someone like Barack Obama is less oppressed than a houseless white man, which is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So that's why you have to understand class struggle in this society. Certainly, that type of wealthy white man is at the top of this society. That's the super rich in this society, and wealthy white women are right up there next to him, not having the same power that he has, but certainly in a position of white women have demonstrated they're supporting him. There's no large mass exodus of white women from white men. So for the most part, they're supporting him and his patriarchy. They're living with it. They're accepting it because of the privileges they get from living in that close proximity to power. So that's the top of the whole thing. And then underneath that, you have many different layers. Now, when it comes to African people, certainly I'm going to quote our All African Women's Revolutionary Union, our AAWRU, because they are 100% correct when they say that the African woman is a slave of a slave. So we know this to be the fact. We know, all of us know African men who are pressed by capitalism, can't get a job, struggle over money, stressed out. And so they take it out by beating up the woman that they're with. They take it out by beating up their kids. This is a clear example of African men benefiting from the patriarchy. And those of you who can't see that, I mean, I don't know what else you need to do. I don't know why. I just cannot understand why we feel like if we acknowledge someone's suffering, especially African women, that we're losing something. I really just think that is just a weird headspace to me. I don't have any problem acknowledging people's humanity. It doesn't take anything from me. It actually gives me more humanity to acknowledge that I'm in a position of privilege over African women, to acknowledge that I have I can acknowledge someone being queer, and it doesn't take anything from me to do that. I don't lose anything. I gain because my humanity is enhanced. So we have to talk about that African men have to recognize the role of patriarchy, and we are a long way from that. There are a lot of African men listening to me right now that are uh, just really struggling with this message. I know because I talk to them all the time. Really struggling with this one. And it shouldn't be a struggle. It should be a very easy thing to understand and accept. And if you are truly dedicated to our people's collective liberation, you wouldn't have a difficult time accepting this message. And in fact, when I deal with my brothers and they're talking about well, these people are not, this community is not, they're, that doesn't need to be a part of what we're doing to build nationhood. Women need to play this particular role. I tell them all the time, I'm sorry, I belong to the All African People's Revolutionary Party, not the Some African People's Revolutionary Party, not the a few African People's Revolutionary Party, not these people over here Revolutionary Party, the All African People's, these people over here, but not those people Revolutionary Party, the All African People's Revolutionary Party. That's what I joined. That's what I belong to. That's what I'm committed to. And that's what I'm going to die working to fulfill. I'm going to die working to fulfill that. And that means understanding that there are various systems of oppression. And if I'm for humanity, if I'm for African people, then I have to be against eradicating all systems of oppression. I have to be against eradicating every system of oppression. And I can do that without taking anything away from my contribution to African liberation. I mean, it's comical to me when people try to argue to me that, well, if you take on this patriarchy thing, this anti-patriarchy thing, or if you take on the indigenous people struggle or the Palestinian people struggle or queer people struggle, they're not there for us. Well, which is not true. But people saying that are not people engaged in day-to-day work. Because if they were, they would know that that's not true. If you're out here doing work around justice on these streets, you're going to encounter all types of people. I know all types of people from all types of backgrounds. I'm sure I've even struggled with a few Martians for justice and liberation. All types of people and non-people, all types of folks, because that's just the nature of resistance. It's not just one segment of the society that's going to resist. It's going to be all people who face oppression. That should tell you something right there. So because that's the case, I know that that's not true. I know that there's no such thing as these communities don't support us. But uh, regardless of that, even if we accept the backward argument that these people present to us, I can tell you that in no way does my support for other oppressed communities, no way does my support for African women take anything away from the contribution that I'm making to the struggle, not even to African men. It doesn't take anything away from it. In fact, it enhances it, it builds upon it, it increases it, it strengthens it. It does that. And these people telling me that, and I'm like, you haven't done, if we go, let's sit down with a checklist and talk about what we've done for our people over the last year. And I guarantee you, before we even start, that you're not going to be able to even come close to the work that I do. So that disproves your statement right there. And the reason why I can do so much is because this understanding enhances my ability. When I recognize my humanity, then that allows me to see other people's humanity. And when I see other people's humanity, that allows me to have the vision to know that we have to create a better world. And when I get to that point, there's no force on earth that's going to stop me from pushing in that direction. When I see people and they're all, we ain't gonna do this. I don't support that. Then that you're in a place where you're really not comfortable with who you are and what you are here to do in this world. And you need to just take time and deal with that and stop creating confusion. So we have to acknowledge that patriarchy's been around for thousands of years. It did not start with colonialism. Stop that nonsense. It's been here for thousands of years. It was in Africa thousands of years ago. Patriarchy is there. It's been in Africa for so long that some of you are confused enough to think it's patriarchy is a part of our culture because it's just been around as long as people, for thousands and thousands of years, for 10,000 years, it's been around, approximately 10,000 years. So some of us are confused enough to think it's just a part of our African culture. It is not. It is not. There is a clear, and again, Secretary writes about the history of class struggle You should read it. It's in the book Strategies and Tactics of the African Revolution. And then that Secretary talks about the first organized period of class relations being communalism. And then people figured out I can get people to work for me, and then I don't have to work as hard and I can own more wealth. And so that's when the institution of slavery as a dominant economic system came into existence. And it was during that period, approximately 10,000 years ago, between 10 and 15,000 years ago, that patriarchy became an institutionalized practice because men began to dominate women at that time and began to dominate non-gender binary people because those folks have always been here. If you study African history, I've studied it. I'm happy to show you where you're confused. Don't come to me, but if you come, don't waste my time. We're gonna do some serious study. And if you're not prepared to do that, you're gonna be overwhelmed. So come on, bring it on. But I'm saying that's always been a part of our community. And so that's when that began to happen. And that's the slavery that existed all over the world. That's not the same as the chattel slave system that has me sitting here speaking English in the Western Hemisphere right now. Don't be confused about that. So let's talk about best practices for fathers. Fatherhood, by definition, is a collective responsibility. It can't just be an individual thing. This is a capitalist trait. Everything is about individualism in the capitalist system. Fatherhood, motherhood, childhood, siblings, family is a collective unit. That's the whole purpose of family, is to be a collective unit. You all say it, but we act like we don't understand it. It takes a village. That's a collective statement. There's no statement that says it takes one individual to raise a family. Nobody says that because that's not true. So it's by definition a collective responsibility. It cannot be defined within any type of individualistic construct. That means that as a father, you have to be in working practice with other fathers. You have to be in an organization. You can't just do it by yourself. There's no way that's going to work. You have to be in an organization. Now, the reason why I feel like I've been able to sustain it, the level I've sustained it over the years, is because I was never alone. I always had other African men who worked through the same principles that I have in this particular political formation, and we worked together. We helped raise each other's children. Even now, the children are all grown in their 30s and 40s, and they, whenever I see them, it's Uncle Jamu. We're not biologically related. We're related on a level higher than that. We're ideologically related. So this is how you do it, you all. And from that, we create a community of culture around what men should look like, how men should act, that we should not lead with ego, that we should lead with humility, but we should always have strength. And strength is not being able to beat someone up. It's not just that. Strength is being able to admit when you're wrong and you messed up, and to be honest about making a sincere effort to do better going forward. And to do that, that requires accountability. And that accountability comes from that collective level of organization. And the reason why these things are foreign to us is we don't have that collectivism. We just have individualism. And the problem with individualism is you can do whatever you want because you're not accountable to anything. And that's why we have this problem. And especially as African people, because we are not, individualism is not a part of our culture anywhere we are on earth. Our culture is collective. That's why it's ridiculous when people say, well, we ain't no Africans. Everything about us is African. Every single thing about us. I can show you things you don't even understand that you do that are African. They didn't come from California. They didn't come from New York. They didn't come from Canada or Jamaica. They didn't come from Haiti. They came from Africa, like we did. So this is a part of our culture to be collective. We're collective. We work together. That's what we do. We have just allowed this capitalist system to convince us that that's somehow a problem. It's not going to work. But we should definitely struggle against that. And that's what we do. So this has to be defined within the proper context of a family. How do we engage in a family? And what is the role of family in collective society? I tell you all the time, we study in the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Years ago, we read a book by Frederick Engels. We read everything. We read everything. I learned that from some of the older cadre. Many of them are not here anymore. When I was a young man in my 20s, they would read everything. I remember one Sister Nehanda in Oakland, told me we were at a meeting, and this one African, I had this book, The Protocols of Zion. I was reading it because I've always been a voracious reader. I read everything. And this book was written, Protocols of Zion, and I was reading it. I thought it was an anti-Zionist book. It actually wasn't, but it was a very interesting book. You should read it. And so someone in the meeting criticized me reading that book. And I was a young man. I didn't, I hadn't developed, if that happened today, I'd tell them which part of my body they could kiss. But I didn't do that back in those days. And so I just, and I respected this person, or at least I thought I did. And so I didn't really say too much. And Sister Nehanda saw that, and she told me, don't ever let anybody tell you don't read books. You should read everything. And that made sense to me. And ever since then, I've that reinforced me. And that was damn near 40 years ago. But I remember it like it was yesterday because it's a critical thing to understand that we have to engage in that kind of conscious raising so that we can understand the role of the family. But anyway, this Frederick Engels book called The State. I can't even remember the name of the exact name because I read it so many years ago, but it's something to the effect of The State, Family, and Revolution. And Frederick Engels, of course, was a European Marxist Leninist. But the book was great because he gives an irrefutable history of how families evolved from collective units as they were supposed to be into production units under the capitalist system. And if you think about it, you can't disagree with that statement because families in a capitalist system, that's where the nuclear family is a capitalist innovation. Because if you go back in history, there's nowhere on earth, nowhere in Africa do you have a nuclear family, even today. Among indigenous people, you don't have a nuclear family. You don't even have that in Europe if you go back in history. And we are so colonized in our thinking that the European capitalist colonizer has made us ashamed that we have our grandmother in the house living with us, that we have our uncles and aunts living with us. And a lot of us have accepted this backward narrative. Well, we just do that because we don't have money. Yeah, I mean, finances, of course, in a capitalist system is a part of it. But my point is, we were doing that long before we had money problems. Okay, that's a part of our culture, you all, because we don't have nuclear families. That's an advent of capitalism where the family is just a production unit. You have a father and a mother. You have this heteronormative family, and you have children. And the role of the father is to work. And now capitalism is greedy, so now the role of the mother is to work too. So this is the phenomenon that you're facing in the capitalist system, where both parents and we operate under all these fantasies and illusions. I raise my kids. You don't raise. I tell people all the time, you didn't raise your kid. You spend 5 minutes a day with your children. 5 minutes. You better make those 5 minutes count. And most of us don't. We don't. We're under this illusion because we're saying the same thing to our kids over and over. So we think that means that we're influencing our kids. And that's nonsense. That didn't even work with you when you were growing up. So you go to work all day, you're tired, you come to the house, you prepare some food. By that time, it's 7 or 8 o'clock at night. You are not spending quality time every day with your children because the capitalist system is not organized to care about you spending time with your children. It's organized for you to take your ass to work, slave for the master, do that for 40 years, retire and die. That's what this, and then they'll replace your ass and do the same thing to someone else. That's the only thing this system is organized to do. And we got to stop all this fantasy and illusion about, you are not raising your family. The capitalist system is raising your family. And I am thankful for having this revolutionary organization because I understood that. I was under no illusions. And so when Shakura was about 13, 14, she took a picture at the mall with her two friends, and she did the West Side. This is during the 90s, early 2000s. And that was when that hip hop music from all these West Coast artists was, popular across the world, and that symbol of crossing your middle finger and your whatever the fingers are, and West Side connection. And so she took a picture doing that. And so I found the picture because I remember one time I was in her room and she said, "Daddy, this is my room. Can you, tell me when you're going to room?" I'm like, "No, you don't own anything in this house. I own everything in this house. I don't have to tell you anything. I'll knock. I'll respect your privacy, but understand your privacy. This is not this house. I know we're socialists. I know we're a socialist family, but this house is a dictatorship of the proletariat. And the only proletariat, the only working person in this house is me. So when you get there, we can have a different conversation." But I found the picture and I asked her, "Well, what does the picture mean? What symbol are you using here?" And she, I'm like, it's a simple question. Like, what is the symbol that you're illustrating in this picture? "I don't know." I'm like, "Okay, all right. It's all right. It's okay. Let's talk about what it is." Because that's what I would always try to do is I didn't censor anything from Shakura because I knew that wouldn't work. Instead, I wanted to get out in front of it and properly educate her about it. So when it came to sex, I talked to her. We went to Planned Parenthood. We watched, we talked to people. We were proactive about this kind of stuff. When it came to all of those types of things, schoolwork, I told her from day one she started going to school, if you have a teacher that's a positive influence in your life, that is that's an extra thing. You are not to expect that to do not expect that to be your experience in school. If it happens, great, benefit from it. But you got to go in there every day understanding that this entire system is not built to educate you. You are not getting a proper education going to these schools. The slave master is not going to educate the slave to overthrow slavery. That is not going to happen. Never in history can you demonstrate to me where that's happened. That's why when you go to school this week, they're going to be talking about 250 years of freedom and democracy because that's their role. That's the role of school in this society. And you certainly have plenty of educators who buck that. And we need to give them praise and support. Yeah, I got two in my family, two daughters that work in the universities from a faculty and administrative standpoint, and they both of them certainly buck the system every day. And I know many others that do that. I have many friends. Shout out to my good friend and brother Morel Brooks and sister Njiba Freewad in Ghana. They do that. They buck the system, but the majority of these people just trying to get paid. Y'all know that. And they ain't trying to educate nobody about nothing that's going to jeopardize that paycheck. That's their objective. And I'm not saying people don't, shouldn't have their job. All I'm saying about that is, what if our ancestors had have taken that approach? I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize my position on this plantation. Where would we be today if they had clearly they did not take that position. Clearly they took the position that I'm going to make a sacrifice. I might die making this sacrifice, but I'm making it because this is what our people deserve. We deserve a better opportunity. I read this book about these Africans that escaped these slave patrols and ended up becoming police departments. And the one was the slave patrol would terrorize them. And they told the Africans, like, you don't have enough food to make it through the winter. They were coming out here to go through the plains part of the country. You're not going to make it. And the Africans said, well, then we're going to die in the snow. And that still hits me hard because it's like there's so much dignity in that. And we don't have that today. Most of you Negroes today, when they told, well, you don't have enough to, well, then we gonna turn around and go back to the slave plantation to tell them we coming, tell them we'll be there as fast as we can. That's where we're at today. No dignity, none whatsoever. And dignity is the most important thing that we can strive towards today. We don't even know what that is. We don't even know what it looks like. When Malcolm X visited Guinea with Ahmed Secretary, that's it. Malcolm X wrote in his autobiography and in his speeches, he talked about Secretary told him over and over, our people need dignity. Teach our people dignity. That's absolutely true. We cannot see ourselves as just fathers to our biological children, although many of us don't even rise up to that minimum requirement. Chris Rock, one thing he said that was really funny, he talked about, African men talk, I take care of my kids. Like that's, and I see it all the time. I see men like, I pay child support. Like I told a brother the other day, he said, I pay my child support. I'm like, I wouldn't even admit that if I were you. That's the bare minimum. Money is the bare minimum. You didn't lead with, I spend this time with my child. I spend that time with my child. You didn't lead with that. When Shakur's mom and I got divorced, we did 2 weeks, 2 weeks for 13 years without fail. That every other weekend thing, that wasn't going to work for me. I had to be a father there all the time. And I think that that's the kind of thing we need to push for in our lives. So we cannot see ourselves as just fathers, our biological children. We need to see all the children as our responsibility. We have to be father figures within humanity in general and the African nation in particular. So what that means to me is when I see African youth and they're wilding out, I talk to them. I don't chastise them. I talk to them. And I have never once had them be disrespectful. And it's nothing, there's no magic to it. It's just you have to come from a position of sincerity. People aren't stupid. They can detect and know where you're coming from. And I talk to them all the time. The brother stands outside the Safeway there, young brother, high school student, and I give him money selling candy so he can play sports because capitalism doesn't prioritize kids having activities. They just arrest them and put them in prison when they don't have anything else to do and they stray off of that. So I give him money every time. I go in the store, I withdraw a $20 bill and I just give it to him. And I don't eat the candies. I don't want the candy. So he already knows. He's like, he doesn't even ask me. And I'm gonna give you, I'll bring you something out. I give it to him. And I said, what you got to do for this 20 is you got to listen to me for 60 seconds. He told me the other day, man, I look forward to seeing you and listening. So more of us need to do that kind of thing. More of us need to do it. That's what we need as a people. So fatherhood must, fathers and everyone else who belongs to oppressed communities must become organized. The reason why I can do the things I'm talking about is because my entire adult life has been about engaging in organized struggle. I've never just been by myself doing things individually. Organization requires active participation in efforts to bring liberation to our people. Active participation. Because if you understand that this problem is not just you and your kids or you and your partner, but it's a problem with our people, it's a problem with humanity, then now you can begin to understand how you can have a proper role in engaging in it. If you just look at it from an individualistic standpoint, then the capitalist system is going to tell you, well, the reason why you're having a problem is because of you. You're a failure. You don't know how to do this and do that. And then you believe that, and then you suffer from depression and all this, and you can't get out of that. It's not just you. Whatever problem you have, it's not. I don't care what it is. You're alcoholic. You're drug addicted. You're whatever it is. It's not you. It's this backward ass system. Now it's you if you know it's a problem and you don't do anything about it. That part you own, but it is not you. Imagine approaching fatherhood in colonized and chattel slavery as individuals. We'd still be in it if we did that. We'd still be in it. And men, if you want to be seen as just a material provider, then we have to deconstruct. If you don't want to be seen as just a material provider, the solution to that is not just blaming women, because the way this capitalist system works, a woman has to look out for her future. You're not going to, you probably not going to be the one taking the children. So she has to be able to look out. And I understand many of them have gone to the extreme. I get that. But that's what happens when you live in a bastardized society like this one. So if we don't just want to be seen as material providers, then we have to deconstruct this capitalist model. That's how we do that. We can't do that on an individualistic level. We have to do it on a collective level. And until we recognize that, we will continue to have these problems. But we're going to continue to fight against it because we know that victory is in our vision. We just got to get more and more people to recognize that. So we just want to thank you for joining us for this program today. We want to invite you to join us next week. We're going to be talking about 250 years of lying, hypocrisy. You know, how the hell you expect me to say? You just vomited on Juneteenth, but then I'm supposed to celebrate that trash and nonsense and your toilet paper constitution and your toilet paper flag. You can burn all that. The only thing that shit is good for is burning firewood, nothing else. Fire paper, nothing else. The QR code in the upper left-hand corner, the red and white one, it tells you all of the APRP programs. So scan that to get that. Forward Ever Shop, you can buy revolutionary clothing. So do that. Hoodcommunist.org. Check that out. Revolutionary Pan African blog. Wonderful thing. If you're here in Sacramento, we've had 2 weeks where we didn't have class, community self defense, but we're back this Thursday, the 25th. 6 to 8 p.m., 2775 Cottage Way, like cottage cheese, Unit 15, 2775 Cottage Way, Unit 15, 6 to 8, Thursday the 25th. Come on out. We're going to be, we've started sparring. We're doing a lot of wonderful things. You got to come and find out. We'll have a quick discussion on the events in the world, and we're building community. So we invite you to come out. You don't have to register. We're not, this is not no capitalist thing. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to bring your soul and your spirit and a willingness, and you're welcome. So come on out. And then also for those of you in Northern California, we're doing a follow-up event from African Liberation Day that we held in Oakland last month, May 23rd. The follow-up event is going to be Saturday, July 11th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Eastside Arts Alliance Center at 2277 International. I paused because I'm going to say East 14th. International, they changed the name. But 2277 East International, Saturday, July 11th, 3 to 5 p.m. We'll have some food. We're just talking more about how we can get organized. You all, like, we are serious about this. It's ongoing work. So we invite you to join us there. If you don't know anybody here that can go to the self-defense classes or to the event on July 11th, then or if you're not here, rather, somebody here, then tell them to go. Go join the AAPRP, www.aaprp-intl.org. Do that. The bottom right, scan that QR code, and you can be a monthly sponsor for Burkina Books, the AAPRP's work in the Sahel region of Africa, in Burkina Faso and Niger. We're bringing in revolutionary literature so we can build work study processes, which is our program. So help us do that. Become a monthly sponsor, whatever you can. And my book in the upper right-hand corner, the QR code is there to the left. You can scan that. It's only $8 paperback, $5 for the digital copy. A guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. A guide for organizing defense against white supremacist, patriarchal, and fascist violence. Go ahead and check that out. It is a very good organizing book. Don't take my word for it. When you scan the QR code, you can read. There's about 70 reviews of the book on there. I don't know any of those people. Oh, I know a couple of them, but I don't know most of them. And they can tell you, what the book is about. But you should get it because it's a good organizing book. And then also 100% of the proceeds go towards the anti-fascist work that we do here, like the self-defense classes. So help us do that. If you have the book, thank you. Order some more, give them out as presents. You should have been giving them out for Father's Day to fathers. That would have been a great Father's Day gift to give them this book. But you can still give it to them because you don't have to observe the colonial 24-hour period of the backward capitalist holiday. You can do it your own way. So order the book and give them out. Order 4 or 5 of them and give them out. Call your library and have them order it so it's available. Call your local bookstore, wherever you are, and have them order copies. It's only I only priced it at $8. Obviously, I could have gotten a lot more, but I wanted it to be accessible because I wanted bookstores to be able to get it and be able to sell it. They can sell it for $10, $12 and make whatever they need to make. and put it out there. So please help us do that. We use this money, 100% of the proceeds from the book, to make sure that we have the supplies we need to do the anti-fascist work. So we appreciate you all being here. Hope that this was something that can inspire you. Uh, we love you. If you're a mother, a father, a caregiver, a supporter, whatever you are, you're doing the right thing. Intensify the efforts. Let's do it collectively. Let's get organized. Enjoy the rest of your day.